What's up, everybody? I hope you had a good weekend. Welcome to the UFC blog, UFC Overload blog. I don't know why I can't seem to get that right every time I introduce it, but here we go. So what I got for you today is the results from the past UFC event, UFC 143. If you look down beneath me, just a little bit, I have all the official results from the prelim cards and the main event cards. I'm going to discuss right now the results from the main event cards, starting with the main event, the interim welterweight fight. It was between Carlos Condit and Nick Diaz, and I'll just start by saying it was Condit winning the unanimous decision. Yeah, I mean he won it. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that Diaz won the first two rounds, and then Condit, I thought he took the last three because his style was it was not working. It was working very well. I mean, it was working very well against Nick Diaz. He was doing some leg kicks on him, kind of slowing him down in the later rounds. But he wasn't exchanging with him. He was backing up the whole time. I mean, his nickname's the Natural Born Killer, but I wasn't seeing it like I thought I would. Said to y'all, I predicted I thought we'd see a better fight. It wasn't a bad fight, but I mean, he was constantly backing up the whole time, circling the cage. Diaz was on the offensive the whole time. At one point, Diaz actually he slapped his face and said, "Quit running." So I mean, he was upset. He thought there'd be a little bit better of a fight as well, and so I mean, he was upset with that. After the fight, he was real upset. After the fight, he was real upset, saying I don't need this shit, quote unquote. Saying he might retire, but I think that's probably just because he was upset. I mean, I'm sure he's still under contract, hopefully. But also to note that one thing Diaz should have done, I feel like, was taking the fight to the ground more. I think it went to the ground maybe one or two times, and one time in the fourth round, though, it went down, and Diaz nearly had him in two different submissions. He nearly had him in a rear naked choke and a triangle choke at one point. So I think he should have, saw how, I think his corner should have told him about the success he was having and tried to take it down instead of just standing up with him, because he was just boxing pretty much, and then Carlos Condit was just backing up, doing some counters and throwing some kicks in there, and he wasn't checking any kicks. He was just getting kicked in the leg the whole time. So that slowed his mobility down towards the later rounds. But good job to Condit. I mean, he'll be fighting George St. Pierre, or possibly he might defend it one time, because they said Pierre's not coming back till November. So I'll keep you updated in that situation. And then with the co-headliner, it was Fabricio Verdum versus Roy Nelson. And it surprised me a lot, I'm not going to lie. Fabricio Verdum brought it to him every round. It was unanimous. It was dominant, unanimous decision. And what was crazy, though, I think they went to the ground maybe one time. And, I mean, he was a lot better on the ground, obviously, than Roy Nelson. But his stand-up was ridiculous. Like, he brought it to him the whole time. He had crisp boxing. He had a stiff jab that just kept getting Roy Nelson. But where he really got him, I mean, he's a big guy, like 6'4", compared to Roy Nelson, I think 6 foot. And he was able to get him in the Muay Thai clinch, just just freaking give him knees, man. There's a nasty gash about an inch and a half maybe on Roy Nelson's head. He was bleeding a lot. I got some photos down below from the fights. You can just see how bloody he got. But I mean, it was definitely surprising. Last time I saw Verdum fight, he was fighting against Alistair Overeem in the Strikeforce Grand Prix, and he was literally falling to the ground pretty much to stay away from the stand-up. Like, that's how scared he was of the stand-up. And so, I mean, I didn't have any respect for it hardly coming in. But, I mean, he showed he's definitely got some stand-up. And Roy Nelson, I mean, you can't really say much more about him. He hung in there. Like, he showed great heart, I mean, I don't know how he didn't get knocked out a couple times. It's pretty ridiculous, but that's just big country, He can stand in and take some licks, but we'll see what I don't think he'll be cut this time, but I think one more loss and he gets cut, because he's 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and I mean, they've all been pretty bad, except for the one he won against Mirko Cro Cop, who's definitely old and shouldn't be fighting anymore hardly. And then another main event fight was Josh Koscheck versus Mike Pierce. And this is a fight that Mike Pierce actually asked for. Pretty much had called out Koscheck because he had fought Koscheck's training partner, John Fitch, and he nearly won the fight. In the third round, he really gave it to John Fitch, and so I guess he just wanted to call out his buddy, But and Josh Koscheck, in my opinion, was on another level to Mike Pierce going into the fight, but he really didn't show it. He wasn't as dominant as I think he could have been. It was a real close fight. And Josh Koscheck was actually close to getting deducted a point because he had an open palm, would like try and stop the jab kind of, and he actually he cut Mike Pierce on the head. That was where like all the blood was coming from. He cut him on the head with like his thumb, it looked like, and he actually ended up poking him in the eye later. I felt like, because he got warned twice, I believe, which should have been a point deduction, but there was no deduction for that, which was a little weird. But so Koscheck, I mean, he did just enough, standing up. Neither of them were looking too good, really, standing up, and it didn't go to the ground a lot. Where Koscheck probably would have done a little better, but he was able to pull out the split decision victory. So I mean, a win's a win, at least he won. And then next was Hinan Barrow versus Scott Jorgensen, and man, this kid Hinan Barrow, what I found out was he actually trains with the featherweight champ Jose Aldo. And I mean, I guess when you train with the champ, you just want to fight. I mean, fight, like, just notch up your game every time you go out there. So he's a weight class below in bantam, but man, he brought it to Scott Jorgensen, who was definitely like a #1 contender just about a year ago. The only person he's lost to in his last, I believe, 9 fights was the champ. And I mean, this guy brought it to him worse than the champ did. When I saw Cruz fight Jorgensen, it was not this bad. I mean, he's supposed to be a real good wrestler from the Pac-12 and everything, and he couldn't get him down. It's like these guys from I can't think of the camp that they're from, Jose Aldo and Hinan Barrow, but I mean, you can't take him down. It's ridiculous. You can't take him down. And he has a serious jab, just like Jose Aldo. I don't think he's got quite as much knockout power, but I mean, this is like one of the best fighters without a title belt at this point, in my opinion. And so I mean, he's probably going to get one more fight because Cruz is already locked up to fight Faber again, and he's probably going to get one more fight against top competition. I honestly think it should be Chad Mendes, because I mean, why not put him against Chad Mendes, who just fought him, to see how good he really is, because Chad Mendes was #1 contender for there for a bit. So I think he'll have one more fight and then get Cruz as long as he wins. And I think he could probably beat Dominic Cruz, I'm not going to lie, but we'll see how that turns out. And then the last fight from the main card was Ed Herman versus Clifford Starks. And I hadn't heard much of Clifford Starks going into this. I wasn't real big on Ed Herman, but I'll tell you, man, these guys they went out there and just were throwing bombs the whole time. They were throwing their hands. It was a very awesome first round, very entertaining. Everybody was just throwing it as hard as they can, like getting up in the clinch and throwing some uppercuts. Herman was. And Herman actually, in the second round, they came out or Starks, I'm sorry, he actually won the first round, which was a little surprising. But I mean, surprised me a little bit just because he was a relative unknown to me. This is his first UFC fight. But like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of faith in Herman. But in the second round, they come out, they're doing the same thing, Herman goes for the takedown, and Starks stuffs it, but then he gets him up against the fence on the second effort. He gets him down, immediately takes his back and just gets him with the rear naked choke, puts him to sleep. Well, doesn't put him to sleep, he taps, whatever, just a saying. But so that was pretty surprising that Ed Herman was able to get a submission. But so I mean, now for Ed Herman, that's three wins in a row since he came back from his injury. He had some serious surgeries on his knees, and so he was out for a little under 2 years. And so he came back. He's had 3 consecutive finishes. I believe 2 knockouts, or no, I'm sorry, 1 knockout and 2 submissions. And one thing that Herman was saying about before the fight came in, that he's got so much more faith in his hands, and he feels stronger now since those injuries, because I mean, he has a wrestling base, and he couldn't wrestle because I mean his knees were dead, so he couldn't do any grappling. So he just goes, and I mean he feels a lot stronger in his upper body, and he's got a lot more faith in his hands. And I mean he showed it. He went out there and was just throwing bombs. It was a good first round. I wish they would have got another round or 2 in, but I mean that's just how it goes. All right, and so that's it for the discussion on the UFC main card results. This week, unfortunately, there is no fight, so I won't be posting any predictions in the days following. I'm sorry. I know everybody's looking forward to it. But I think I got something a little bit better for you. So since it's an off week this week, I'm just going to go ahead and post up some UFC ring girls. Yeah, you're welcome, fellas. All right, y'all have a good one. How do I stop this?